Okay, question number 2. What has been the net change in the total value of property in the county with relation you have new stores or manufacturing located here? I know the value of all the property really determines what the tax base is. They call it the tax digest. It sounds like my lunch that I digested. But it's the tax digest has changed over the last few years, and we're in 2012 here, and I know that change in the tax base has made a huge impact. So what has been the changes in the property values in our county?
That one has been tough to digest. It has been unbelievable. And, you know, people are very frustrated with their property values. What Henry County is experiencing is not unique to Henry County. This is a global recession. And what we're seeing is affecting people all across the world. And the United States is no different, and it's in all 50 states. Everyone is experiencing some difficulties related to this recession. But in Henry County, our residential property values have dropped in the last 4 years 40%.
40%.
40%. Out of 54,000 residential parcels in the county, 31,000 of those are now valued at less than $100,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. The average price house 4 years ago was $189,000, and today that same house is $107,000. So we've watched our revenues, which the digest and the value of those properties determines how much money you collect in taxes, and we've watched those values plummet over the last 4 years.
Taxes you collect are based on a percentage of, right? Percentage of the property values, is that right? Or some kind of millage rate? That's not from Milledgeville, though.
No, it's not from Milledgeville. It seems like it sometimes, because it's really kind of crazy the way taxes are computed in Georgia. But 40% of your assessed value is what you are taxed on.
So it does depend. As your property values drop, your property tax also drops.
That's correct.
Okay, because the millage rate is a percentage of the property.
The millage rate is set, and every year the commission has to set the millage rate. What they do is they determine this is the amount of money we need to make the county budget work. And then we set the millage rate based on the property values to work in conjunction with that, so that we end up with a bottom line dollar figure for our budget. In 2009, the county's overall budget was $132 million. We just approved a budget for just over $115 million for this upcoming year. So you can see well over a $17 million reduction in our budget in just 4 years.
And if it was a business that suddenly had $17 million drop in their budget, they would have to take some pretty serious cuts or changes in the way that the business itself operated.
Absolutely.
And so that kind of leads me into the next question. How have you offset that decrease in revenue compared to the services needed? And where have you cut the budget?
You know, we have cut in many different ways through not purchasing new vehicles, you know, instead of purchasing new police cars, sending those into the shop and having those refurbished, which has provided some cost savings. We've had attrition, you know, every company has that. People leave and you don't refill those positions. We've had people who have taken retirement and have left, and we've eliminated those positions from the budget. We have eliminated departments. Actually, a couple of years ago, that was one of the steps that we took. We also implemented furloughs for 2 years for our county employees, and they've had no cost of living increases in the last 4 to 5 years. So we have been looking at cuts in every department. In the first couple of years that we had the recession, we did across the board cuts, and people have done without. It's funny because I tell people every time I go to a hotel and they have extra pens, I bring those back. So sometimes it's just the little things. We've put in some more energy efficient air systems, heating and air systems with grant money. We had an energy grant that we received, so we replaced some of these dinosaurs of heating and air units to save money on our utility bills. The Sheriff's Department, we've pretty much utilized all inmate labor to clean our judicial buildings now, where before we paid an outside company to do that. And
that's saved quite a bit of money, I believe, like $100,000 a year or some large number like that.
Absolutely. The sheriff additionally renegotiated the medical contract. The medical cost for the inmates in our jail are astronomical. And so he was able to renegotiate those costs, food service costs, everywhere that we could look for some savings we have. And so now we're at $115 million and some change on the budget. And I believe we're pretty much at rock bottom. 70% of our salaries are 70% of what our budget is salaries. And even within the police and fire department, 84% of the police department's budget is salaries, 90% of the fire department's budget is salaries. So there's very little equipment in there for either of those two departments.
So when people talk about trying to cut the fat out of government, and you look at our local county government, what you're telling me is we've cut fat, we've cut anything that we possibly could cut, and really if you were to cut any more, you would have to be eliminating police or fire or employees of some type.
Or services.
Sure.
You know, and there's been some debate about that. But when you start talking about, well, let's cut out senior services, we have a lot of elderly people that are shut in that depend on the Meals on Wheels program. What's going to happen to them if we cut senior services? Or, you know, we have wonderful park and rec facilities, and we've invested millions of dollars of SPLOST money into these parks over the last few years. If we start cutting those services, you start impacting quality of life for your citizens. And then you have issues with at-risk youth and things like that. So there are domino effects for anything that you choose to cut out of your budget. But our citizens moved to Henry County because they wanted a good quality of life for their family, and we have award-winning parks. We have award-winning park programs. We have great senior programs, and many of this, we do receive quite a bit of grant money in these departments. But those quality of life issues are what makes a community a place that you're proud to call home. So you have to be careful when you start cutting services that you're not impacting the quality of life, because if you do that, you'll see your community begin to decline. You'll see businesses that don't want to come because they want good quality, a good quality of life for their employees as well.
Well, there's also the whole issue of if you cut, say, parks and recreation, is that a lot of times those fields and things are used for tournaments where you have large numbers of players who come in from all over the country and all over the place, and they stay in the hotels,
yes.
They eat in the restaurants, they go shopping at the local businesses, and there's an economic impact of those people being here that helps all of the local businesses, and they're all paying sales tax, and they don't live in the county. And so having those facilities and having them open to where people can come in, can use them for those, actually is a plus that you really might not be able to see on the budget itself, but it's a plus for the community.
Absolutely. It's one of those hidden benefits that you know, like you say, it doesn't actually show up in a way where you can see that line item tournaments, you know, revenue. But you're right, Henry County is a favorite for especially the Little League type of tournaments. And now because of the the mega complex that we have at Mount Carmel Park, we're seeing more soccer tournaments come in. And they absolutely love to come to Henry County. They love the hospitality. They love the location. We have an excellent park and recreation staff, and everything that is done with quality. And so they love coming to Henry County. They know it's going to be well organized, and they're going to have a good time. And they're very convenient to Atlanta too. If they want to go into Atlanta for some of the tourist attractions there, and then come back to Henry County at night, it's actually less expensive to stay here than it is some of the downtown hotels.
Great. Well, there's a lot of opportunities in this county, and there's a lot of planning that goes into this. There's also a lot of issues that relate to the changes in the property value, but cutting the budget, trying to be a wise steward of the funds that come in, it's a really difficult task. When things were booming, it wasn't nearly as hard, but now that things have gotten tight, and I know you mentioned recession, some people will argue we're not in a recession. Well, technically maybe not, but boy, we still feel it because of the unemployment. But I appreciate all the efforts that you and the county commissioners have put in to try to make some tough decisions and make those things happen. And so we're going to be talking about some more issues here in just a moment.